Kia ora koutou. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the extraordinary council meeting of Wednesday. Well, it might be extraordinary, we'll see how we go. Wednesday the 23rd of October 2024. It's great to see so many of you here. In terms of health and safety, if the alarm sounds, please make your way out through the nearest exits. They're on both sides. The assembly point is over on 3rd Avenue, across the road from this building. Please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and the video will be publicly available on YouTube and the council website afterwards. Members, could you please remember to speak clearly into your microphone, only one speaker at a time for clarity. And I ask everyone, could you just please turn your mobile phones off or put them on silent. Thank you. I'd just like to start with an opening karakia. Could we ask Councillor Baker, please, to start us off.
Mauri ora te whare, tautoko anau i ngā mihi kua whāriki hia, kia koutou katoa, tō tātou nei hāpuri kua taimai nei I tēnei rā. A koutou anō hoki, e whāriki nei I o kōrero I pāna ki ngā kaupapa I muri a tātou mihi ana. Ko te manako mō tātou katoa, ma te tika, te pono, me te aroha, me arahi nei I a tātou katoa I tēnei rā. So it's just welcoming, supporting the sentiments of Mayor Mahe. Great to see so many people in the room. Those of you that are presenting as well, this is a safe space for you to share your whakaaro, to share your thoughts and opinions on things, and that values like respect and integrity guide all of us that are speaking and debating today. And so with that, I'll just open us up, and we'll get into this extraordinary council meeting. Ka pai. Taua ke rā te moana nei e paripari kauana ki te akau tangata, ka ki ngā waka ka mauru te tohu ki te arearenga o mauwao, he pauheringa mou, he pauhononga mou, kia herea ki te tika, kia herea ki te pono, kia mau, kia ita, kia u, haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora.
Thank you. Now we have apologies from Councillor Schooler and Councillor Schuler, and Councillor Sydney has been granted a leave of absence. Could I please call for a mover, Councillor Taylor, and a seconder, Councillor Kurak. All those in favour? Those against? Motion carried. Thank you. We're going to start today with a public forum. We have a couple of different topics. Have we got, is Buddy Makari here, and Kylie Willison? Yep. And they would just like to share some information on the Karuru Valley, and I'll give you 5 minutes to speak, and then we can have questions afterwards. Welcome. If you can just push the button to turn on your microphone. Thank you.
Testing, can you hear me? Yes, all good. Tēnā koe, I te koro matua o tira tātou katoa ngā kaikauni hira, me tauranga moana whānui, e mihi ana. E te apapa nā hau I te hiwi ki moi hau, kia marama taku titiro ki tauranga. E ko rangi nui, e ko te rangi hauhiri, ki ranga taua, ko tama pahore. Kia tūranga tira tonu au I runga o Waimapu, nā kahu whaia, ko tahuri wakanui. E piki ana hau I te ahu kaura, e noho ana au I te taumata, I te ri o Tamara Waho. Kia ora koutou, my name is Kylie Willison, and I'm from here, born and raised here, and I am from Ngai Tamara Waho Hapu, Huria Marae, which is just across the Waikareau estuary over here. I'm here today just to speak on behalf of my hapu, Buddy gives his apologies. He couldn't make it today, so he's asked me to pass on his thanks to you for supporting the recommendation today in the report to approve the change of classification for that part of the Kōpūrererua Valley Recreation Reserve known as Puketoro Mero Pā, from recreation to reserve to historic reserve. Firstly, I just wanted to acknowledge those from the hapu who more than 20 years ago worked with the council, key staff from the council, to realise a vision that my hapu had for the Karuru Valley, which was to restore the valley and the awa from a wasteland, an area that was dumped on and drained for farming, to what it is today. And there's still a lot of work to be done, but just acknowledging that mahi that Tauranga City Council, Jeff Canham led the team back then, 20-something years ago, along with my hapu, worked together collaboratively on realising that vision. So e mihi ana kia rātou. I am today's version of Ngai Tamara Waho, and I'm carrying on the mahi that they done before me. And last year, along with staff within council, we worked on the development of the Puke Toromiro Pā Heritage Management Plan. You may not be familiar with this plan, but last year, again, prior to the plan going to public consultation, it came to the council, and it was approved. And through that process, and come forward to today, now we have the final signing off, if you like, of the change, the reclassification of the reserve. So that reserve, or this action actually is an action out of the Heritage Management Plan, which we developed with council staff. So I'm here to support that and ensure, with your support, that it goes ahead. I just wanted to read, as I mentioned, this today, the approval of the reclassification is a key action out of the Heritage Management Plan, which I think you will find interesting. There are a number of actions at the back of the plan, and this is one of them. Other actions include co-management and with the council, and working with Ngai Tamara Waho, the hapu, to realise some of the aspirations for the valley, which include restoration mahi. The pā, we are actually maintaining the pā at the moment in conjunction with the council, and so it's really an important day, and important that we come here to acknowledge that and ensure that your support for this follows through and realises that action, so we can continue to achieve the other actions in the plan. Ngai Tamara Waho has a development concept for the Karuru Valley and stream, which the hapu are looking to develop in partnership with other stakeholders, particularly the council. The vision is to create within the valley and stream an ecological and cultural island that offers open space with enhanced public access and which links naturally to the walkways and cycle paths around the Waikareo estuary. But even more important than this is the revitalisation of the cultural history of the pā and the valley, and the acknowledgement of the cultural narratives which for a long time have been lost and haven't been acknowledged, and they add to the beauty of Tauranga Moana, and we are here to share those narratives with Tauranga Moana whānau. So that is all I wish to say today, is to support you, to support this reclassification going ahead. The hapu endorses it wholeheartedly, and we look forward to moving forward with the plan, the Heritage Management Plan with Council, and ticking off those actions that and those aspirations for the valley and for the pā. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. Just sit there in case, does anyone have any questions? Councillor Taylor.
Without presuming, but we're going to decide, but I'm sure we will. What's your next step after this?
The next step for the pā, you mean? So is to continue what we're doing. So we're currently maintaining the pā. We've been working for just over a year now, getting rid of the gorse and the privet and the woolly nightshade, which has infested our pā since the removal of all the gum trees. So we'll continue doing that. There's a planting plan in place. We're looking to review that with council staff in the next wee while, and to add some species to that, some more rako to plant around the base in particular. Going forward though is to create to make the history known of the pā, to share our history with tauranga moana whānau and the community, and so that we can enjoy that history together and acknowledge that cultural history that underlies all the ecological restoration, wetland restoration mahi that's going on there. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for your work.
Kia ora.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mayor Mahi, and thank you, Kylie, for coming in and presenting. Very quick question from me. I've just been studying the aerial photos. Was the pā transected by Route K? Did it go through the middle of it back when that was developed?
It did, and so that is one of the reasons why this action is in place, is to prevent any further cutting through the pā. Yep, it already has been hugely impacted by the Takitimi Drive. So to protect it from any further roads going through the middle of our pā, we're utilising this tool, the Reserves Act, to try and stop that from further happening. Yeah.
Any further questions? Right, thank you very much. It's great to hear your perspectives, and look forward to working together to create a nice, I guess, better wetland and area for everyone to enjoy. So thank you.
Kia ora.
Now we'd like to invite Erica Harvey and Sean Kelly. Is there any? Okay. If you guys could come forward, I've allowed you 15 minutes between you to speak, and then we'll answer. We'll ask any questions that you may have.
Just before we get started, I wanted to acknowledge that there is a number of stakeholders here who will answer questions that you have. They all come from different industries, not just fishing, who all utilize this area. So I just wanted to acknowledge that for question time. Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Let me be clear right from the start. This is not just about the Marine Precinct. It's about much more. This is about transparency, accountability, and the future of our city. It's about whether the people of Tauranga can trust their elected representatives to protect their interests, or whether we're being left to foot the bill of bad decisions that benefit a select few at the expense of the people who call Tauranga home. Today, we're here because this council made a decision behind closed doors, taking a strategic asset, the Marine Precinct, and downgrading it to a non-strategic asset. Then, suddenly, like magic, an unsolicited buyer appeared, offering a price far below its true value. And because of this reclassification, no public consultation was required. Even worse, this deal, made at such a low price, was hidden behind commercial sensitivity, so it didn't even go out for public tender. I've spoken to people both inside and outside this room who would have offered much more for this land. Years ago, we approached the council, including some of you here today, offering a cooperative solution to keep this asset in public hands for future generations, but those offers were ignored in this deal. To allow this sale to proceed under these circumstances at such an undervalued price is unconscionable. So let me break it down. You're selling 3 hectares of prime waterfront land for just $13 million and have signed ratepayers up to contribute $30 million to upgrade the infrastructure for a private venture. The public is paying while the private owner profits. Worse still, the private owner can charge whatever fees they like, meaning they can even price out the small businesses affected in this deal. And if his venture fails, well, your contract sides with the investor. He can sell the land for whatever price he wants, likely turning a profit, leaving Tauranga with nothing but debt and more rate rises. This isn't just a bad deal. It's a disaster waiting to happen. You've justified this by promising super yachts will bring in wealth and based on pretty pictures and a vision someone is telling you, but the math doesn't add up. Even in the best case scenario, your own projections say that each super yacht visit contributes around $70,000 to $100,000. Meanwhile, the existing marine industry, which you're pushing out, workboats, logistic vessels, and fishing boats, contributes well over to $100 million annually right now. Not in a dream or a vision, yet you're ready to sacrifice that for a speculative luxury industry and pretty pictures. But this isn't just about the numbers. This deal is the latest in a long series of questionable decisions made behind closed doors of this council. You claim to have consulted iwi and the public, but by your own policies, iwi should have had first right of refusal once the precinct was downgraded to a non-strategic asset. From what we've been told, this hasn't happened, yet your document says it has, just like it says that we too were consulted. This is not an isolated incident. This is part of a decade-long pattern. I have spoken to 4 different mayors and 5 governance teams about transparency, and yet here we are, still fighting for it, still being told to look ahead and not look back. Yet each time we look forward, the past, it comes back to haunt us. The faces change, but the decisions stay the same. So I'm asking you, who is really making the calls? Who's pulling the strings? What is driving this deal? Take a look at paragraph 91 of your agenda. It suggests that this sale is just a quick way to fund shortfalls in other projects, like Te Manawataki o Te Papa. There is a $26.3 million debt tied to the Marine Precinct, and instead of repaying that debt, the money from this sale is being funneled into other capital projects. I don't have time to go into the details, but I encourage the public, the media, and central government to review this and ask the hard questions. Is this really in the best interest of Tauranga's future? I argue absolutely not. I know firsthand how this affects real people. My husband's family ran a long-line fishing vessel. We weren't just fishermen. We were ambassadors of sustainable fishing, bringing world-renowned Michelin star chefs to Tauranga. Until this council sold the Marine Precinct in another shady deal, gutting our industry. When I hear this council frame this issue as super yachts versus fishing, it's not just wrong, it's offensive. This isn't about small, dirty boats. It's about families like mine who spend months at sea to bring fresh fish to Kiwi tables. It's about the marine survey boats, charity vessels, logistics ships, engineering that all contribute year-round to Tauranga's economy in ways that the super yacht industry never will. Today, I'm calling for an independent investigation into the sale of the Marine Precinct and all the other deals that sound similar and don't add up and don't make sense. This investigation should not be one behind closed doors, but one with the scope defined by the residents of Tauranga. The public deserves to know how this deal and other deals like it was signed off without proper consultation and why we're being sold out to fund someone else's dream while we're left trying to put food on our tables. Councillors, you have an opportunity today. Commit to us that if nothing is built for the marine industry in the next 2.5 years, since you have sold the only place we all call home, you will guarantee the facilities promised in 2018 by former Mayor Gary Poole to an email to the Honorary Shane Jones, which I have right here to hand out to you, where he made it clear, and I quote, "The Marine Precinct was meant to support local fishing and the marine industries," end quote. It's time for accountability. It's time to stop rubber stamping decisions and start asking the hard questions. And it's time for the people of Tauranga to take control of their future. Because when all of this is said and done, the value of this city is not measured in dollars or luxury yachts. It's measured in the families who live here, the businesses that call this place home, and the trust that we place in our leaders to protect our future. Thank you, and I'll pass it over to Mark.
E tautoko ana ngā mihi ki te rongarawa. He mihi au ki a koutou o te tepu o Tauranga Council. Tēnā koutou katoa. The Mayor, tēnā koe. My name's Mark Ngata. I'm the General Manager of Moana, New Zealand. We are the largest seafood business in New Zealand, and we have operated out of Tauranga Port for more than 30 years. With our partners, with our fishers, we have invested in this region, and I'm here today to put our support behind the others that are questioning this particular decision that's been made. We find it unconscionable that we can put all this investment into this particular area over 30 years, and that's just us. That's not the other commercial operators that are operating out of here. And then have it with a pen, we're gone. Haere atu. See you later. We find that unconscionable, and we're not here to accept that, and we will work with our shareholders to do what needs to be done. Moana New Zealand is 100% iwi owned by all 58 iwi, and in this context that includes the iwi within the Tauranga Moana area, and I acknowledge them who are here today, Kaumātua Puhiraki Ihaka from Ngaitarangi, and Rawiniata from Ngāti Ranginui. You know, our returns that we get from fish that comes in here goes back to our shareholders in the form of dividends. Our shareholders use those dividends to develop their own iwi, their own businesses, their education, their health systems, and they rely on us to do that. The fisheries settlement was part of helping iwi to get into these businesses after being out of them for over 100 years. So Moana New Zealand has made a commitment to Tauranga. Every year we put in over 8 million ourselves into this particular region. The fish that comes out of this region returns revenues of around 21 million, and it's exported globally. So this is our second biggest port that we land fish into. So it's an extremely important place for us. And to be told with the stroke of a pen that, here's the new plan, you're not even part of it, we find unconscionable. Really unconscionable. We've invested in this region with our shareholders. We have a business called Baypackers that is owned by those iwi, and we support that business, and it provides local employment and product to the regional community. So, our shareholders, and we will take their lead, we'll do what needs to be done to support the calls for you guys just to take a breath, to step back, and in fact follow your own values. And if I look at your website, your values are all about whaia te tika, do the right thing, right? It's about inclusivity, working together to get the best result. That's your own website. So in this case, I understand you're new councillors, and I tautoko you for taking on that challenge. I think you're probably realising what a challenge that can be, but this is where we are. So I urge you just to take a breath and let's sit down and talk about this and see how we can move forward as a group, as a collective group, for the betterment of this community here in Tauranga. Because we're not going away. You've taken away our location, so you've displaced us as a sector. So where are you going to put us? That's your job. That's not our job. You've displaced us. And hopefully you're not going to follow some dumb person's drawings that I've seen, where you're going to put us down by Bobby Palmer's. Because our boats can't fit under the bridge. So, that's the sort of, is that the sign of professionalism we're kind of dealing with here? Let's just take a breath, step back and have a kōrero together. We'll find the solution, and it'll be a win-win for everybody. I understand you don't want to dredge up the previous regime, and kei te pai. But we at least need to acknowledge it, right? And I'm sorry, but there's cracks appearing, and if we don't deal with this together, we're all going to fall in it. So again, I urge you just to take a breath, step back, and let's work on this together through the Precinct Working Committee and iwi that should be involved, that haven't been involved, and we'll work this out, because we're not going anywhere. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, Erica and Mark. Thank you very much for sharing. I think I can give you my word that we've already been in touch with Erica, and we are committed to working with you both and everyone else to find solutions. This is something that we have also inherited, and it is what it is, and we have to find a solution that works for everyone. So I'll give you my word on that. Have we got any questions from the elected members for Mark or Erica? Okay, cool. Councillor Crowther?
Yeah, thank you very much for your input. I'm interested in, we've been advised, council consulted with Mana Whenua, and it lists Ngāti Tapu, Ngāti Pukenga, and a number of iwi hapu trusts. I'm trying to understand what the nature of that, of our staff, what the nature of that consultation was. It's a hugely significant part of the Māori economy. I'm hearing really different things when I'm out in the community, and when I'm in this building I hear that there was consultation, we followed the due process. Can you please, if anyone's in the room who has any insights into that, I don't know, Puaraki, if you want to comment, if others who were there, who weren't there, because this is a really crucial issue, and I just find it very difficult to align the different comments that I've heard.
He tuatahi, he tuakanei rungi te kaupapa o te rā. Nō reira, kei te mihi atu ki a kouta rā, ngā memo o te kaunihira. Me ngā iwi katoa kei roto I tēnei ruma, he rungi tēnei kaupapa nei. Nō reira, tēnā koe Mark, Ngāti Parau, hautapu, tēnā koe hoki, kia koutou rā katoa o te moana, o tauranga moana. Nō reire e noho nei. This has been a in terms of discussions on how it can be managed. And speaking from my point of view and some of the conversations and meetings that I had with the previous council or commission and leading up to today. Obviously, in particular, I sit here with my potai, with my hat as the chair of the Otamataha Trust, who represents the two hapu of Ngāti Tapu and Ngāti Marawo, who are mana whenua in this roi. Yes, those scenarios have been put to us. The discussions centred around where the location was going to be. I had a look through the agenda last night myself. I had been away for a few days and found that it was on the agenda for this special extraordinary meeting being called. And to be honest, there wasn't a lot of dialogue or information in the paragraph relating to mana whenua consultation that I could see. But in terms of and remembering that this is, I'm speaking off the cuff, so to speak, without having time to prepare any presentation to this. So I am careful in how I recall things. So please take it in that vein. If it requires further follow-up from any further consultation between mana whenua and this council. I urge that we do that in terms of the comments that have been spoken by the presenters and by yourself, Mia Mahe, in terms of how you have expressed your desire to continue working with mana whenua and other iwi in general. So, going back to the take that we talked about, the main issue that was brought up at the time was exactly as Mark Ngata raised, and sorry I've forgotten your name, Erica, about what about us, where do we go? That was discussed at the previous meetings, and I do recall us saying to the commissioners, so what about them? What's going to happen? Given that some of their boats, fishing boats, will not fit under the bridge. I don't think that was resolved totally, if at all, and so perhaps we should further carry on in that vein, Mahe, in terms of further discussions and consultation around that particular point. The one about moving down to Bobby's Fish Shop was, it was said in a bit of humour, I think. There would be room along that strip, given that there is going to be a certain amount of changes down there at some stage. That's all I'll say about that one. And that, in terms of the fishing vessels that could come in there, would be suitable in terms of offering an alternative, which can be again further talked about to get a conclusion to that one. But I feel that the one regarding the larger fishing vessels, which obviously catches a lot more fish and contributes a lot more revenue and a lot more money. And so as a person who currently also works in the commercial fishing for my iwi, for Ngaitarangi, I also ask that question in all seriousness, because we as an iwi, Ngaitarangi, and I know the other iwi are the same. You've heard there are 58 iwi that totally are the shareholders for Moana, and a lot of our income from fisheries comes via them, and so this is a serious matter, and I think that there should be a continuance of some further work to be done. Kia ora tātou. He Pātai, any questions?
Thank you.
I'm keen to understand how many boats are currently housed at Bridge Marina, or Bridge Wharf, whatever it's called.
We have around 10 boats that work in and out of Tauranga. They're all 25 metres and longer. So, that's about the best place for them to be. Obviously, they can't go under the bridge. And obviously, the Sanford area is privately owned, and they've got their own boats there. So there's really no other place along there for those types of boats to come in and unload, service, do what they need to do.
Sorry, just from a mooring point of view, do you know how many actually uses that bridge wharf? Or
well, that's just our company, right?
Is it?
So other commercial Lee Fish have boats working in here. Some of those fishermen are here today as well. Bay Packers, Palco, they all have boats working as well. So,
But actually, sorry, just so the bridge wharf is obviously potentially not going to be available. So how many boats does that specifically displace?
yeah.
Well, it's not 17 on Bridge Wharf. A supplementary to that is how many boats are currently down at Fisherman's Wharf?
I would suggest that since you guys run Vessel Works, that you have that data, and therefore you should probably be pulling it instead of asking us, eh?
All right.
Respectfully,
Yeah,
I mean.
We'll do that, that's fine. And yeah. And like what we have currently, is that adequate?
Whole bunch of time on this whole thing since 2006. I came here at 19 years old and parked my first fishing boat at that wharf, at the Bridge Wharf, in 1995. And I've been self-employed in the jungle ever since. Okay. Now, in the history of my using this harbour since, we've systematically had our wharves removed. Basically, they've fallen into states of disrepair. The flash consultants that are employed have come along and condemned the wharves and said they've cost too much to fix or whatever, and they've been removed, such as Coronation Pier, such as the current Moana Wharf, the state that's left in, with only a 4 metre strip that can conceivably use to unload some fishing boats. Okay, to give you an idea, at the height of the tuna longline heydays, I counted 154 boats in here one day. Okay, that was in 1998, thereabouts. Okay, so in answer to the question about the amount of users, etc., the point is that it is the expense for us to do business in town is already greater, far greater than other places. I drew those drawings, such as the one at the Fisherman's Wharf, and I gave them to Dave. And the reason I went my time, my trouble, my money to produce those drawings, as well as a whole raft of other things that I've done since 2006, when I began lobbying for the Marine Precinct to be built, that drawing has been used since I drew it and twisted to say, oh, here, the fishermen were happy to go to Fisherman's Wharf. That's a load of bullshit. That is not what I said. I said we need a whole bunch more wharves, and here you can put all the little guys down here, and we can make our CBD and our waterfront look like Napier, look like Hobart, look like Tasmania, look like Venice. Right? That's what I did then. That's why I produced that drawing, and that's only a small part of work that myself and others have continually come to these council meetings for all of these years to get one last crumb of what we needed, of what we were told was available to us, and that was the Marine Precinct that we're talking about. Okay? And now, right, it's been sold. Okay? And I've got some documents for the councillors here, and I'm going to hand them round prior to the end of this meeting. Okay? But so since 1995, the loss of our facilities, etc., that I've watched, the harbour bridge that caused us to lose more facilities, the loss of Coronation Pier, which was a failed public public-private partnership, by the way, which the TCC is still paying for in terms of that barge that's sitting on their wharf that's taking up our space, right? So it's just gone on and on and on, all the lobbying, all the meetings that we've been to over the years, all the time and money, all the extra costs of doing business here, and now we end up being displaced without consultation, in my opinion, and a whole bunch of other things, and a pipe dream being sold, right, particularly by Priority One, I think, of the super yacht dream of this place. Well, I can tell you lot, I've owned 2 super yachts, and I've certainly been involved in the service and management of many more, right? And I know what's propped up this place, and since it began in 2016, and it is not super yachts. It's the local industry. We've got one over here who spends $8 million a year on his boats, right? We haven't had one super yacht come here and spend $8 million, right? The revenue from our businesses, which more or less are getting treated like a joke, right, is well in excess of $100 million. We're all here, well in excess of that. All the tax, all the rates we pay, etc., etc. We're all here, all our families that we have to provide for. What I want from this council, and I say this very seriously, is to grow some teeth, right, and stop the sale. Don't stand here and tell me that you can't do it. That's utter bullshit. And in fact, I've got a list of questions for you here, because I am personally, right, funding an application to the High Court to injunct the sale, because I think there's still time, on the basis that it is my opinion and the opinion of many in this room that it's an unconscionable sale. And I've included copies of things from your own website, such as your property acquisitions and disposals policy, which I think has been breached, and also your consultation document that's on your website, which I don't know what sort of consultation you guys think you did, but everybody in this room that's not part of the TCC, former councillors, local businesses, iwi, everybody thinks you didn't consult properly. All right? So here's my information pack with all you guys. I've given you 7 days to answer some very simple questions, and whether or not you answer them doesn't matter to me, because I'm going to still apply for this injunction at my cost and my expense with my kids' inheritance.
Thank you.
And
Sean.
can I just say, thank you, Sean. We're only asking for what we were promised. We're not asking for more. We're asking for what the Marine Precinct was designed to be, and we're asking for you to finally deliver it.
Mate, can I ask a question, please?
Yep.
My name's Wayne Q-Sabs.
Wayne, can you come up to that mic? Sorry to make you about it, but it means anyone's watching online can have hearing.
Yeah, my name's Wayne Q-Sabs. I had my first fishing boat here in 1972. That's 50 years ago. I'm 73 years old, and as everyone else here says, we're getting thrown out the door. My question is, we know this deal was done through the commissioners and Tolly. Waste of space. That's all. A complete waste of space. But I want to know, are you the chief of the council, are you? Yep. Your name is? Oh. You know all about this deal. How can you tell me and everyone else in this room how someone walked off the street and offered 13.4 million for their precinct? Walked off the street. He's paying it off in 6 years. He's not paid anything for it. He pays a payment when he takes it over soon, another payment in 3 years, and another payment in another 3 years, is what I've been told. Is that true?
Well, we can.
No, is it true or not?
We can ask questions in the public.
Yeah. So that's what I've been told. That joker made $50 million in one night on that sale of that place, because that's what that place is worth as it is there now. 50 million. There's a consortium of us here. I would have jumped at that. I could have got 4 or 5 other people here. We would have brought that overnight. And we would have put it into a co-op for the fishing people of this town.
Okay. Yeah,
that's all I've got to say.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. Have we got any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for your time, and I'll reiterate that we look forward to working together in the future to find a solution. So thank you.
Thank you for your time.
So that concludes the public forum. We have a late item, which is in publicly excluded late item, which was circulated to elected members on Tuesday, the 22nd of October. It is a report on the Tamanga bioreactor number 2 ground improvements. This does have some time constraints, so what we will do is discuss the marine precinct, and then we'll go into publicly excluded. We need to resolve to accept this late item. It has been considered at this meeting and cannot be delayed to subsequent meetings. As it's an urgence of nature, we will consider this item in publicly excluded after we've considered the marine precinct report. I call for a mover. Thank you, Councillor Taylor, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Kurak. I call all those in favour. Those against. Thank you. We have no confidential business to be transferred into the open.
I just note on one of the confidential attachments, and that's the art gallery land purchase. The resolution there, Resolution H, retains the report and confidential until the purchase of the property is settled, which I understand it has been settled. So doesn't that resolution stand and therefore can be put into the open?
It hasn't been settled.
Oh, so it hasn't been settled.
It's unconditional, but
okay.
Yeah. Change to the order of business. There will be a change to the order of business. We will consider the sale of marine precinct first, and then we'll go into publicly excluded, and then we'll come back out and we'll finish off with publicly excluded at the end. Declaration of any conflicts of interest? None, thank you. Therefore, I'd like to go into our first item of business, which is 7.4, sale of marine precinct. I'd just like to start with this, just to reiterate some of my comments that I've already made, that, this is an unconditional agreement. This was done under the previous governance structure. And I think, it's important to understand that, but important that as governors we inherit any decisions that have been made, and it's up to us to work constructively with all parties involved to find a solution and make the best of the situations that we're dealt. So that was just my opening comments, and I guess overall, if the vision comes off, it will be a fantastic thing for our city and the whole industry as a whole. But generally, personally, I'm not comfortable with the risk that has been put on the ratepayer for the return that we're offered for that investment. So I'll get into the report, and I ask Simon Collette and Paul Davidson to speak to the report.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. In terms of this report, I'm really going to take it as read and just open for questions. The resolutions are designed to actually continue the dialogue with all of the users of the facilities at the precinct to look to come up for solutions that are workable, but I think we're best just to take questions on the report.
Have we got any questions? Councillor Kurak.
just historically, when the precinct was first purchased and developed, and we had grants, etc., what was the purpose of that facility?
Don't quote me for the exact words, but the facility was there for the provision of services to the marine industry.
Thank you.
Look, Crowther.
I'm trying to get my head around the contract, and we've got some legal advice around that, but we haven't had all our questions answered. So in terms of what we have to provide in that contract is bridge wharf, a proposed offloading wharf, and then what's currently talked about as Fisherman's Wharf, which I think all have heard acknowledged is not sufficient for the fishing community. Now, I'm trying to understand what what the scope of those projects, how restrictive that is within the contract, because we have sort of like a drawing that we got presented, but part of the issue is that there is only limited amount of waterfront space that can be used for pretty much anyone who wants to access the land, and unless we can do something different around that wharf, around the bridge wharf area, I think we're severely constrained here, and I'm just wanting to understand those conversations that took place, which must have, presumably, knowing the history of it, must have discussed that issue very explicitly. If not, I'm gobsmacked. So what were those discussions? Because presumably you had those with the purchaser, and how were you viewing that at the time that it was discussed?
What's the question?
What is the scope for putting in provision for the fishing fleet within the development of the 29.2 million contribution from Tauranga City Council as an extended development of the Bridge Wharf area?
So there's the scope's set out in the agreement that the Marine Precinct is there to support the marine industry generally. In terms of the wharf infrastructure, it's going to be under management. The management will, and the aim of the Marine Precinct and the purchase is predominantly the super yachts. So the assumption is from that the fishing fleet would be displaced. For those vessels that won't get under the bridge, that's still up for discussion, and the purchaser is quite aware that he will need to accommodate that, and that includes the roll-on and roll-off as well.
I often hear the word assumption, and we've assumed, and it's implied. I've heard all three of those phrases. I'd like to know in black and white, do we have the ability to actually provide for the fishing fleet there as part of the $29.2 million cap? So we could develop that for the purchaser, provide some space for white boats, provide the offloading wharf with the space. Understand we particularly need a berth space for a big white boat, but can we, within that $29.2 million cap, which we are told we will have to spend up to, can we provide some facilities in that area for the fishing community?
Under the current agreement, in the short term, yes. In the longer term, we would no. That is why the other options are being looked into to accommodate the fishing fleet.
Councillor Currat.
When entering into a sale process, how is it that, given the facility's purpose is for the marine activity, and a significant part, particularly at the time it was purchased, and the Port of Tauranga sold that land, was on the basis of accommodating and speaking with the port representative, it was for the fishing and work boats, the black boats. So how can it be advanced, a sale process, without accommodating the core uses of that facility? How did that happen?
So under the agreements that were approved by the Commission was to look at other options for the fishing fleet. That includes relocation of vessels that can fit under the wharf down towards the Bobby's Wharf that was referred to, and then still looking at other options for vessels that cannot fit under the bridge.
Sort of doesn't answer the question. Before proceeding to look at potential sale or for sale, shouldn't that have been finalised in terms of accommodating the fleet, the fishing fleet, the workboat fleet, given they've operated there for years? When the sale or the purchase from the port was done, it was under the guise of accommodating that industry. How can that have not been settled before proceeding into a sale arrangement?
I could only answer it in terms of the facility was there for the marine industry, which includes fishing and it includes other vessels, and that was considered as part of the Commissioner's decision.
The end sale agreement basically in the long term excludes that industry, so they're not accommodated.
No, we're trying to work through solutions to accommodate.
I sort of, okay. I've ended
Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mayor Mahi. With regard to those other options to accommodate the fishing fleet post a sale of the marine precinct, is there a number in the long-term plan that backs that up, or is it just a wish of the Commission as opposed to a funded plan of action?
It was an additional $8 million.
I just have a question. It's regarding paragraph 90, and it just refers around the what it was currently, the total trading deficit was around that $2 million a year. So have we got any idea on the overheads, interest, depreciation of our $29.2 million spent?
At a 5% interest rate and 2% depreciation, for example. Sorry, I'm just working out approximately $2 million.
So similar to what we're losing at the moment. And then just to follow up, this is probably not really a question, but paragraph 91 is, there's $26.3 million of debt allocated to the marine precinct. I'm personally very uncomfortable that would be available for capital projects. The sale price I'm talking about. So, yeah, I think that really needs to be allocated against debt. Otherwise you're just sort of pushing the can down the road, and then we can then, if we need to borrow for another project, we can borrow that specifically rather than have this sort of $26 million sitting in the ether.
So with that resolution, that's following a Commission resolution that took the gross proceeds subject to any decision to change that. So that's absolutely what would be the decision of Council, the resolution of Council to make would be to take that as a net proceed figure, i.e. remove that amount. Yep, it's fine.
Add that.
You can do that now.
Mayor, could I just add that that would obviously impact the Te Manawataki contribution to capital.
There we have the truth.
Have we got Councillor Crowther?
I'm just wanting to understand the financial side of it a little bit more. Firstly, just to clarify something, it talks about $13 million price in the agenda. Then it talks about the 13.98 or whatever it was, so 14 million. Was that just an error, or is there some calculation that gets us down to 13?
That's an error. That's 13.98.
Okay, right, that's right. So we've got an asset with book value of about 29, sold at 13. So we've got this $16 million loss on the book value. So does that go into the, like, is that in our 2023-24 annual report? Will it be in next, current year's annual report? Where does that actually track through financially?
It's a very good question, because we're working through with audit actually how to put that transaction through, but it will be reported across this and next year's annual report.
Okay, so over 2 years. Okay.
Any further questions? All right, thank you, staff. Sorry, thank you, staff, for that. I now would like to ask for a mover to the motion. And I'm happy to move. Have we got a seconder? And sorry, the recommendations, I'll read them to you. That the council receives the report Sale of Marine Precinct, completes further work exploring options for Tauranga's fishing and working boat community, including the development of wharf infrastructure connected to privately owned and or council owned land. At the earliest opportunity explores equity, funding and or financing options to help meet the cost of delivering all wharf infrastructure, but in particular to support Tauranga's fishing and working boat community. Requests a further report with the findings of the above work as soon as is reasonable practical, and agrees to transfer attachment 6 into the open following completion of discussions and negotiations with stakeholders, including private landowners. Councillor Taylor has seconded that. I moved it.
Through the Chair, if you want to pass the resolution about debt that you referred to, you'd probably do something that any proceeds are firstly used to repay any debt associated with the Marine Precinct.
Okay.
If that's what you wanted to achieve, that would be a way to word that.
Well, I'm comfortable with.
We can make a note of that, and at any time in the future we can pass that resolution. In fact, it might be an opportunity on the 29th when we have our reforecast budget to include it at that point in time.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. So, yeah.
Can you? Sorry, I've just been. I just lost access to my Stella and my email. So I got. Can you please repeat what was said there in terms of? I'm just drafting up a proposed amendment. So I'm just. Can you clarify the last comment in terms of the debt and putting that forward? Not in this meeting. What was the reason for that?
Well, no, it's just an option. But Paul, if you can explain.
So it can be passed at any time. We will note that, and the opportunity exists on the 29th of October in terms of the reforecast of the capital budget or any future reports on Te Manawataki funding and financing, or any on Te Manawataki at all, that you could pass that resolution. We understand the resolution will be coming, so it's really for councillors to win.
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable with that, and the fact that we can consider that fully in the context of the implications of that. I'll reserve my right to talk, Councillor Taylor.
I think the commitment that we're going to investigate this further should be of solace to the people that have been affected. It's going to be a hard one to solve, but I think we've all of the mind that we are going to try and do something that will sort this out.
Is anyone else? Yep, Councillor Roseboom.
This is one of the previous council's decisions that has not rested well with me. The reason they entered into the sale I can understand why they did it, but the process followed was poor. The people of Tauranga weren't included in the whole process at all. The reason for the sale wasn't for the benefit of the major users of the Marine Precinct area. The total voice of the people of the Marine Precinct and the industry that used it wasn't included in the sale process very well. A lot of people I've spoken to were unaware that it was actually for sale, which in itself is disappointing given that it is a people of Tauranga asset. I do agree with the motion that we've got to look in some way to somehow service the industry that's been shortchanged in this process. We don't have a lot of marine area left to work with to put enough wharf space in place to service the amount of fishermen that want to use this space. So it's going to require some fairly inventive solutions. We have a lot of boats that want to be here, and potentially more boats will come if we get this right, and that's the tricky part. We don't have a lot of space to get it right in, so it's going to require a lot of very innovative thinking. Time frame is also, I'm aware, because people are living in a very cramped space right now, and they're not being serviced well by either us or the rest of the community. That's my bit.
Councillor Karuru.
So Resolution B, I'd like to move an amendment because it's still fairly loose in terms of a real commitment. So completes further work exploring options to fully deliver an outcome to fully deliver the obligation TCC has to Tauranga's fishing. Just insert those words and read it back. I'm a bit unsure myself.
Further work exploring options to deliver.
Exploring options to fully accommodate the needs of the Tauranga fishing. I'm looking at the affected community here and looking for options. Perhaps Christine, you could. We want to sort of commit to fully accommodate the needs of the local fleet.
Expands the options and so you're giving some scope to the options.
And if it just Resolution D does require all that to be brought back to you as well.
Okay.
Just to support that, and I'm aware Glenn's got some kōrero to add to, but I think it's important that we do that with that community and not just for, and I think that's a real key component that I heard come through some of the kōrero that was shared today. So if we could amend it, it would be to do all of that work with the community, not just for it.
So I suggest, I think that covers that is at the end of B, adding in the words working collaboratively with stakeholders. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Taylor, you're happy with that? Okay, Councillor Crowther.
Yeah, I think we're safe to say we're probably all were shocked to see this deal that had been done. I think one of the concerning things for me is that there are still a number of people who think this is a good deal, and I look at the evidence we've been given. We've been told that NZTE, Trade and Enterprise, has said that the super yacht industry contributes approximately $150 million annually to the economy. For New Zealand. Burl did a report in 2020 that estimates New Zealand's commercial fishing industry generates $5.2 billion of output, 2.2 billion of GDP, exports 1.8 billion. You've heard that Tauranga is a key place still for commercial fishing and would be much bigger if the facilities were there. And Bay of Plenty, there's another Burl report which showed that commercial fishing in the Bay of Plenty was worth 194 million, which is bigger than the whole of New Zealand's projected, what NZTE said for the super yachts. And Tauranga is the biggest centre in the Bay of Plenty and the sixth biggest centre in New Zealand. So I look at this and I also think, well, Waikato University did a report in 22 that said Māori owned 33% of New Zealand's quota volume, 47% of value, and I look at what will happen to that part of our community, and I'm talking sort of Bay of Plenty's community, because obviously parts of the Bay don't have what we have, which is some waterfront land to enable this industry to work. So I think this, to find out this was regarded as not a strategic asset, I think it's so incredulous that that could have been considered that I still think a number of us are struggling to get our heads around. And the only way to explain it is the funding for Te Manuataki. To me, without that, there's no other explanation for doing this. I do have a problem with the way that this council at the time, the commissioners, whoever it was, were playing cute, because we have a significance and engagement policy that was strategic or not strategic, and the argument was it's never been a strategic asset. However, in the same document that we got given, it says why Tauranga for this development. It says because of its strategic position, particularly around the existing marine facilities. So I'm kind of going, sounds strategic to me, but more importantly, that in the sale and purchase agreement under 43 Tangata Whenua, it says 43.2, no right of first refusal. The purchaser acknowledges that on the 27th of November 2023, which is a few months after it was deemed to be not a strategic asset, the vendor resolved that the property be classified as a strategic disposal under TCC's property acquisitions and disposal policy. So on the one hand, we have a strategic asset when we want to deny mana whenua a right to have first right of refusal, but on the other hand, we don't have a strategic asset when we want to pull for some money to put towards a budget that is blown out in our city centre. And we should just talk to the community and just be honest and say this project in the Civic Centre was going to have half external funding. It doesn't now. It has $21 million of external funding. And that's why all this stuff is happening. And then we have to work backwards from there and say, how do we sort out this mess? And I've tried. I've spent many hours talking to people, trying to figure this out, and I still don't know how we're going to resolve this, because, as I said, it's gobsmacking that it's not a strategic asset, because we just don't have the land around there to connect to the type of or to the water in a way that enables a big commercial fishing industry. So I don't know if this was a conscious plan by Priority One to say that we shouldn't have a viable commercial fishing industry. I just have no idea. But the feedback from so many people in this community is that this is another harebrained idea that's come from our Economic Development Agency. Just like the $280 million stadium at the Domain, I have no idea why council pays money to the agency to do this kind of stuff, to decimate our local community. It takes away funding from essential community infrastructure, and it takes away funding for something that I think is an important part of our history. Tauranga was built, ever since it was settled, there has been fishing. right back, centuries back, all the way through until the previous CEO wrote to Shane Jones in 2018 and said, Council led the strategic development of the precinct with the aim to provide new facilities for the fishing industry. Right up to then, it was still a key part of Tauranga. And if you ask most people, I'm sure they would say that's what they identify this city with, one of the things. And I still cannot get my head around why people in this organisation and in our Economic Development Agency think this is a good thing that's happened. I think that's the first problem I've got. You know, to be honest, it's even bigger than the industry. It's like, why are we listening to that kind of advice? We have to listen to our communities. So I hope we learn from this. I hope we change our approach to economic development. I hope we do a community-based economic model, not some, what was the words of a, you know, a dream, not just following a dream, but following. As to how we get out of this, I don't see many options, but I do want to propose an amendment. I don't know if it's an amendment to the amendment, I've forgotten where we're at, but like I say, I just got booted off my system. So I'm going to just propose that we insert a new B and a new C into this. We can keep the rest the same. So my amendment proposes to have B notes the following. One, that the sale process didn't, sorry, is this the one?
No.
Oh, Steve was sending it through. He's my wordsmith. That sale process undertaken by the Commission may not have followed Section 4.1 of Council's Acquisitions and Disposals Policy and Section 82 of the Local Government Act. 2, the advice given to councillors that there were no commercially viable alternatives appears to be wrong. 3, this disposal writes off approximately 16 million in the asset value and also requires an additional spend of 37 million or more on wharf upgrades without yet securing an optimal solution for Tauranga's fishing community. And then C, resolves that the sale proceeds will be used to repay debt on the marine precinct activity and not be used to fund other capital projects. So do you want to send? Apologies for the email glitch. I don't know what happened, but we'll hopefully get to the point. We'll get it to you.
Yep.
These are a proposed amendment to make them additional and putting them as B and C and putting B as D and C as E, etc. If you can follow all that in the audience.
We'll just wait to get those up. Would you like to talk any more to it?
I'll just say that I mean, I think I've said most of it, but I guess the one thing I would say is that, you know, to me, the needs of our fishing community are pretty simple. My understanding is that, and I'm happy to be told I've missed some important things, but it's the place to tie up a boat, it's a wharf to unload the catch, it's access to a bit of ice, and a place to park a vehicle, and pretty much that's it. It's not some complex investment plan to try to leverage off debt and to get funding for other things. It's just a place to actually base your fishing operations. And considering what Tauranga used to have, and considering also that the Port of Tauranga, and Rick and I just confirmed this earlier with a senior port representative, that their understanding is that that's the whole point of that marine precinct. Still to this day, that's their understanding. So considering all that, it doesn't seem like a big ask. And I think the least we can do is acknowledge that and kind of apologise on behalf of the council and just hope that we can get something done out of this.
Councillor Morris, would you?
Happy to reserve.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anyone else like to talk to it? To the amendment. Yeah, Councillor Curran.
I think, Councillor Crowther, the real problem here is that we have people, organisations, agencies that consider vanity, because that's what we're talking about. We're pitching white boats, the super yachts, against the working boats. You know, working boats aren't seen as, you know, glossy or whatever. So they're focused on vanity, you know, and compromising the well-being of various sections of the community to deliver that, because the investment is focused at that. Even to Manawataki, I know there's cultural and heritage benefits, huge benefits from that, but all that funding is going to compromise delivering some playgrounds or some sporting facilities for our children and etc. You know, it's about where the priority is going. And I think over the last few years, too much priority is going into more vanity projects. I think this new council is quite willing to address that, and this is one way that we can address it, is to try in some way to deliver an outcome that will, and this is my understanding from way back, you know, and the commitment we made, you know, that we will not compromise what the fishing and work boats currently or did have. But we've gone down the track and it's whittled down to very little. And so if we can somehow accommodate you fully, and as I think Sean, you just said before, it's there's not many options. So I really hope that we do find some real options to fully fulfil our obligation. And in terms of the purchase of that land and the port selling it to the council, it was very clear it was aimed for the fishing and workboats. But then this vanity issue came along and totally displaced that. It's just unconscionable. I mean, I've heard that word how many times, and it's absolutely unconscionable.
So I guess my comments on this amendment is I personally am not comfortable with it because I feel this is an opinion and I haven't had an opportunity to come up with, you know, to actually confirm that these things are actually correct. So I'm happy to note them on the record as Councillor Crowther's opinions, but I'm not comfortable without checking these things properly to vote for the amendment. And I think that C, obviously we've agreed to resolve that once we can take that into account of you know, how to deal with that in a process of the annual plan, which I think is an appropriate place to deal with that. So that's my personal view, but yeah, I'm happy to take any other views.
I tend to agree with you. Once we've checked the facts, though, I think it would be quite good that at some future point, which we will be resolving something else in this issue, we should state those once we know that they are facts and not just Glenn's opinion. I know he researched this stuff pretty well, but I think we should do a bit of work on it before we put it to ink.
Point of order. Just reading the words are in one, the word is may, and two, the words appears to have been wrong. Appears. It's not definitive, it's expressing a concern that needs to be investigated potentially. So
yeah, I don't share those like until I actually can say they were or they weren't. I don't support a motion that we you know, appears or may. That's not to me definitive enough. You know, if once we know, I'm absolutely happy you know, to vote for something I know is fact, but at this stage, yeah, there's too many questions in my mind. Yeah, Councillor.
A point of clarification, is that right?
Yeah.
I guess I'm open to, if the concern is around the Local Government Act, I mean, I'm open to I mean, I think 4.1 seems. I mean, maybe it's just my wacky opinion, but it says clearly in that policy, acquisition and disposal of council property will be managed transparently. Now, if we think this was managed transparently, it says subject to reasonable commercial confidentiality constraints. I mean, we didn't have any commercial confidentiality constraints when we started that process of talking to people to try and find out who wanted to buy the property. Like, there's no way that I can possibly imagine that we had, could say that this was transparent. But if other people have a different view, that's fine, and you can vote on it. But I think what I'm suggesting is that if the barrier, which is probably more likely that I'm questioning whether we comply with the Local Government Act, to me it's clear. But if people don't want to go that far, I'm open to an amendment to the amendment and just remove that section 82. But I do think it's clear that we breached our own policy.
Yeah, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mayor Mahi, is the one who replaced the word has not with may not, watered it down somewhat. I do have to, as Councillor Carruthers referred to section 4.1 of our own acquisition disposals policy, if you do look at the principles of consultation in section 82 of the Act, people that are affected by a decision or have an interest in a decision should be provided with all reasonable access to relevant information, and this is the key bit, in a manner and format that is appropriate to the preferences and needs of those persons. So I think we can conduct business in council speak and in our own way, but it's important that we engage with our community according to their needs and preferences. And I think we've heard very clearly, not just today but earlier, that council did not meet expectations nor preferences, nor information was given in a way that was appropriate for those people. And it goes on, people are supposed to be encouraged to present their views, and that those views need to be considered, and that the local authority, in this case Tauranga City Council, needs to have an open mind when engaging with the community and listening and reflecting upon those results of the engagement. So I think that we may not have followed, and when I say we, I talk about Tauranga City Council, the enduring entity that's been around since 1882. We may not have met that test. I do understand if some members are nervous about that, but I think it is incumbent upon us that when we, and even if it's not us, even if it's our predecessors, when we screw up, we admit it frankly, we apologise, and we move on, and we try and make the best of it. I would just say, I won't speak to the substantive, so I'll just keep talking about the amendment here, so I won't speak to the substantive, but I think that there is a wider lesson here for New Zealand, and particularly for what Wellington is going through at the moment. This is not a personal comment about our former commissioners, because I think they had their strengths, and in particularly Shad, man of great integrity, of a lot of respect for. But in the DIA report to Minister Mahuta, when she was considering the Commission's appointment, the DIA raised with her that her choice of commissioners had little to no financial experience. That is something that we are dealing with the after effects of today and will continue to deal with in the future. I think that's a really important point for the Minister to consider in his deliberations around Wellington.
No. I'm sorry. We're it's.
I own land in the marine precinct, and therefore I have to say I'm a stakeholder. I'm a real stakeholder. I own 7 boats.
Well, look.
Decisions made about us without us.
we've dealt with a public forum, and we're happy to engage with you, and we have already spoken to you, and we will continue. Yeah.
Get around doing it right by putting a may or maybe or may not in an important bit of paperwork. So therefore, when we leave, it just goes back to status quo. You guys are awesome. You two roosters over here aren't awesome.
No, just I'm sorry. We just can we just take it down, and we need to continue the debate.
So if you can, need to go back into the
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got to get back to work. Some of us got a real job.
Anyone else like to speak to the amendment? Therefore, I put the amendment that notes the following: that the sale process undertaken by the commissioners may not have followed section 4.1 of the council's acquisition and disposals policy and section 82 of the Local Government Act. The advice given to councillors that there were no commercially viable alternatives appears to be wrong. This disposal writes off approximately 16 million in the asset value, and is it 13 million or is it 26? 26 is the debt. Is
37, I think, is the 8 on top of the 29.
we've got debt though of 26. Okay.
I think that's what
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. In asset value, and also requires an additional spend of 37 million or more on wharf upgrades without yet securing an optimal solution for Tauranga fishing community. Resolves that the sale process will be used to repay debt on the marine precinct activity and not be used to fund other capital projects. All those in favour? And those against? Yep, that's a division. We've recorded the division. Yeah.
Do you want to read out the names?
Yeah. So sorry. The for was Councillor Baker, Crowther, Kurak, and Morris. Against was Mayor Drysdale, Councillor Roseboom, and Councillor Taylor. That amendment is successful and becomes part of the substantive amendment. Is there any further discussion on the? Yeah. Is there any further discussion? To substantive, yeah.
Some people have already spoken.
Okay, I have reserved my right, and as the mover of the original motion, sorry, Councillor Taylor.
Sorry, just making it clear what I said before. Not necessarily against those comments. I just wanted time to make sure they were 100% correct. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you know, just to sum up, you know, I think this council is you know, determined to have transparency and accountability, and you know, that is part of the reason that we're discussing this whole report today, is dealing with you know, deals that were done before our time, and making them transparent so they're in the public and everyone can see the facts. So that is very much you know, what this council is all about. I think with this deal, as I said, if it you know, if a vision comes off, it can be very good for the city of Tauranga and the whole marine industry, but it does give us an issue as the current councillors that we have to honour you know, legally binding contracts and work with all the stakeholders involved, and we are in a partnership with a purchaser of this land, but on the flip side we also have to work collaboratively with the black boats to make sure that they are also looked after. So yeah, I think there's a commitment here to do that. and we look forward to finding solutions to these problems. And obviously, we've had to go back further than we probably wanted to go, but I am very much from this point looking forward to looking forward and being constructive and working with all parties required to find solutions. And I believe that we can come to a solution that works for everyone involved. So that's really enough of that. I've obviously read out parts of that, and at the start read out the rest of it. So I now put this full resolution to the floor and ask all those in favour. Those against? That is carried. Thank you. We now have a time constraint that we need to move into a publicly excluded session, and I ask for a mover and seconder to Councillor Baker, Councillor Taylor. All those in favour?
You just have to say what you're going into.
Oh, sorry, we're going into a publicly excluded to consider the late report on Tamanga Bioreactor 2 ground improvements. And those against? That is carried. We now will go into publicly excluded. Thank you everyone for your attendance. The meeting will come back into the open once we've discussed this matter to